This Race Department broadcast is brought to you by GT Omega. GT Omega, race your way. The BenQ EX3501R, ultra-wide sim racing curved monitor. ProSimu, professional motion simulators. And Curbstone, probably the best track and test day organizer in the world, as well as our other selected partners.
Hello and welcome to the SRO Esport GT Series AM Championship. The footage is brought to you by RaceDepartment.com in conjunction with GT Omega. Now, I am joined by commentator extraordinaire, Mr. Martin Haven, and Race Department's own sim racing expert, Paul Jeffrey. Boys, just one word, please, to describe how you are feeling ahead of today's race.
Nervous.
Fandabby double dosing.
That is one word, I'll give that to you. Great stuff. Now, last week, after an hour of hard racing, the first round of the AM Championship ended in a bit of an anti-climax because we had a technical issue that brought the race to a premature close. But there was still plenty of racing to be seen. This is how round one unfolded. Hello and welcome to the SRO GT Series AM Championship, and the coverage is brought to you by RaceDepartment.com in association with GT Omega.
And we're using the start-finish line here on the old Grand Prix circuit, so as they come heading into Copse Corner for the very first time, it's wheel-to-wheel, Porsche on the outside, Bentley on the inside, and who has got their tyres warmed up best? Looks like Nizar Sahouri from Spain has managed to keep his nose in front. Let's take a look at our GT Omega replay, and this is the two Lamborghinis towards the tail. Contact there, and one of the Audis gets spun out. And unfortunately, the sister Lamborghinis end up where it used to be a gravel trap there at Copse Corner in my day. Car in highlight number 93, and that is Till Vornam of Germany. 3 wide, and there you go. Oh, spinner. So who was that spun just in front of them, despite the fact they all bumped into each other and tripped over? They've all picked up a spot. Now, what are we seeing here? This is into the Beckett's S's, as ever, cars off on the left-hand side, and it was one of our two Lamborghinis that had the opening lap incident as well, so they are struggling for pace. All shaping up for a move. And that sends Penko defensive. This is classic stuff here, Paul Jeffrey. Setting up the move, makes Penko defend late on the inside. He runs out wide, but Penko just with an overlap as they get into the Vale. And then as we swing through the 3 right-handers, there's contact. And through goes Tim Jarchel and Arnaud Lacombe. And that was that was Ogorodnikov getting spun round as well. He's the man with the peach highlights, isn't he? Let's take a look at the replay here. This is Bentley on Audi, and that is a good move, well put to bed. Luca Schmidt on the inside in the number 11 Audi. It wasn't quite completed, was it, by Lozanov in the Bentley? We're looking at the tail end of Tim Jarchel. For 6th position, we're riding with Arnaud Lacombe. This has been the view Lacombe has had at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit for 30 minutes minimum. A big wide blue backside and some periphery, and that's it. All he's seen is Audi tail and wing, and he lunges to the inside, completely caught me by surprise and Jarchel as well. Arnaud Lacombe, and he's got the inside line as well, down at the end of the Vale. And Lacombe is there, an overlap for Jarchel. There is. Lacombe gives him racing room. Jarchel gives Lacombe racing room. You see, it can be done. And Lacombe trying to come back. Jarchel having a little naughty weave down the straight. Battle is on. We're heading down into the Beckett's S's. This is our Tim Jarchel, Arnaud Lacombe battle. And you see there Lacombe, Jarchel rather, braking hard down from 5th to 3rd. Going into the second element of the S's, and it's from that moment onwards and that right hand that you start to build up speed out of the Chapel curve, down the Hanger straight. And he can't shake off Arnaud Lacombe. Lacombe's coming again down the inside into So. This is 150 mile an hour in fifth gear, in sixth gear, down into fifth. Lacombe goes through. This time he's got to stay on the inside, and this time he has to really cut off Tim Jarchel here. Jarchel is still alongside in the 53 car. Has he got an underlap? Yes, he has. And again, Lacombe makes the pass and Jarchel takes the spot back. Sim racing champion, so touring cars and GTs. A lot of drivers like to make that combination if they can. Oh dear, a noise that'll be very familiar to Windows users. It wasn't actually a Windows crash. However, at the end of the race, full points were given because we passed 3/4 distance. So our race winner is also our championship leader. But that Bentley is being pursued by a phalanx of Porsches. And such a shame not to see the Lacombe battle decided in the flesh between the two Audis for the top 6 positions. But that is how they stand after our first race weekend.
Yes, it is a shame how things ended, and it is the equivalent of a red flag in real life. So these things happen to us all. But Paul, what are your thoughts on everything that happened?
Well, Vicky, I think it was a really entertaining first race. It's the first time out for these drivers. It's an opening round of a championship season. And we saw some great battles, a few crashes. And it's a real shame that the race came to a conclusion 8 minutes before it should have ended. Server difficulties from the race organiser perspective are an unfortunate thing that happens in these things, but they've been working really hard over the course of the last week to try and mitigate the chances of this happening again at Spa-Francorchamps. And as you say, the battle between Lacombe and the Audi was shaping up to be beautiful. And they're going back to Spa. They're going to do it all again, Martin. So we've got another 60 minutes racing at Spa-Francorchamps, where I'm sure many of these grudges and battles and competitive instincts of the drivers will kick in once again.
Yeah, Martin, I just wanted to ask you, the racers have now had a week to prepare. They've seen their competition. What sort of things will they have been doing?
Well, actually, the key word there is a week. If this was real life and you're driving from Silverstone to Spa, first of all, the drivers would have to get there. So you'd lose Sunday traveling and the trucks wouldn't be there until Monday. So that's setup day, Tuesday. You'd be on track on Wednesday. What our drivers will have been doing is getting straight onto their Spa maps and trying to work out how the car is going to work best. Now, they won't have known necessarily at that stage anything about the changes to balance of performance, but they've got to learn the circuit. They've got to get themselves dialed in. And the real racing drivers are making this very point that in sim racing, the moment you finish a race, you're straight on to the next one, rehearse. You can't do that in real life. So they'll have been going square-eyed, staring at their monitors, looking for those apexes, looking through the corners, trying to breathe Spa rather than have to think about it.
Now, Paul, I want to talk to you about the question of ballast. Now, this is extra weight given to the front runners to try and level up the field to make it competitive for all. What does it actually feel like when you've got ballast in a sim racer?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. There's a dynamic balance of performance that's applied to these cars. And from a driving point of view, the car is obviously going to be heavier depending on how much ballast you've got. That'll make it lazier and sluggish in turning. You pull in that weight out of the corners, and Spa's a very quick circuit. You're carrying it in the braking zone, so your braking zone will be extended, and your car basically just won't be on its tippy toes as much as it would be if it was running a lot lighter. It's going to have a significant impact, Vicky, and it's something the drivers will have to be acutely aware of in this race. A very changed situation from Silverstone, where everybody ran at zero balance last time out.
And can you very quickly tell us who's carrying the ballast and how much?
Yes, so the Bentley Continental that won the race, that ballast will apply to all the Bentleys in the field. They got 25 kilograms. And the Porsches, they finished second and third. So on the podium, the top 3 drivers get ballast. So that will be applied 27 kilograms to all Porsches in the field. And they're the only 2 cars for this round carrying ballast.
Okay, well, we will certainly be seeing that fine machinery and others. And whilst we may be very familiar with the cars, we might not be familiar as to the story behind the racing. Fortunately, there is a man who can fill us in, and it is the sim racing YouTuber, Chris Hay.
GT3 is arguably the most diverse racing format in use today, and looking at the lengthy entry lists across the myriad series that use the format, it's safe to say it's pretty popular with racing teams too. When SRO first developed the concept, it was really just a way of grouping together a number of one-make, manufacturer-backed series into one class. It was, to all intents and purposes, throwing a bunch of cup cars and other oddballs together under one set of regulations. And as the class gained popularity, more manufacturers started building dedicated cars to meet the requirements of the regulations. And today, more manufacturers are involved in GT3 than in any other racing format. By the early 2000s, GT racing, like many other forms of motorsport, had become a car manufacturer's arms race. Homologation specials started to creep onto the scene, spending went through the roof, and the only way to keep the racing competitive was to introduce what we now know as balance of performance. And thus, the core concept behind what would become the GT3 technical approach was born. This technical approach is much less restrictive in key areas than most other racing formulas, which leads to an impressive variety of different approaches and car designs. In a typical GT3 field, you're treated to the spectacle of front-engine German executive cars, fighting out with mid-engine Italian supercars, British luxury marques, Japanese techmobiles, and a whole host of other one-offs and oddballs. While some racing formulas rely on a prescriptive technical formula to keep the cars in a sensible performance window for the series, GT3 flips the idea on its head, focusing more on regulating the performance of the cars themselves. This means that there are defined targets for things like rate of acceleration, downforce, power and drag, which allows cars with wildly different proportions, layouts and engine formats to compete against each other on a level playing field. While the cars are varied, they do still have a lot in common with each other. GT3 cars weigh between 12 and 1300 kilos and produce between 5 and 600 horsepower. These days they are almost exclusively based on carbon fibre chassis made for the racetrack, though the homologation requirements do require manufacturers to make road-going versions of the cars as well. And on top of that, as the series has gained popularity, the cars have become more and more dependent on sophisticated aerodynamics, meaning that these cars are capable of some very impressive cornering speeds. And thanks to the balance of performance measures, extremely close racing too. GT racing has had a long history of pairing up full-time professional racing drivers with gentleman drivers who typically provide the funds for the teams to go racing. To make GT3 more friendly for the so-called amateur drivers, the cars have ABS and traction control systems, whose level of intervention can be dialed in to suit the needs of the driver at the wheel. This enables drivers of different experience levels to share the same piece of tarmac in relative safety, and gives the composition of race teams an interesting strategic element. So when you see the words amateur, silver and pro used in the various GT3 championships, it's being used to describe the recent experience level of the driver or the driver pairing. And the same goes for the SRO Esport GT-AM championship. These drivers may not be esport professionals, but they are every bit as quick.
Fabulous stuff from Chris there. Now, if you fancy jumping into the virtual cockpit of one of these machines, then we have some good news for you. Because this week's fan prize competition comes to you via the lovely folks at GT Omega. You can win a GT Omega Pro Cockpit and Racing Seat. The Pro Cockpit provides an enhanced ergonomic seating position in relation to your keyboard, mouse and monitors, allowing you incredible comfort while you race. To be in with a chance of winning, all you have to do is follow Race Department here on Twitch and comment in the chat before the graphic appears on your screen at some point during this broadcast. It really is that simple. Terms and conditions apply. Head over to racedepartment.com for more details. And Paul, talking of competitions, that is not all.
That's absolutely right. On last week's show, we announced a partnership with Barwell Motorsport to run their Race Department Barwell Esport team. What we're doing now is a very special livery competition. So what we want to do is activate the sim racing community to submit designs for the Barwell Race Department Esport team that will be taking part in the last 2 rounds of the SRO Esport GT-AM Championship with Luca Burke. So head over to racedepartment.com, get your creative hats on, design a livery for the beautiful Lamborghini Huracan GT3, and hopefully your design will be picked and will appear from round 4 of the series. Really great opportunity. Get submitting now.
Yeah, great stuff there. Lovely to have such fan involvement. So get creative. Okay, back to the track now. And Martin, Belgium, Spa-Francorchamps is a huge hit with fans and drivers alike, but it has its challenges. It's not that easy.
Well, the first challenge at Spa-Francorchamps is weather. Everybody talks about it incessantly because it can change on the turn of a card. It can be bone dry on one side, streaming wet on the other side. We've had ice, snow, sun, rain, everything in between. It can also be very foggy and very misty in the trees. If it's good, then it is super exhilarating. If the weather's bad, it is utterly terrifying. But it is still a massive challenge for every driver, no matter what the conditions. So let's take a look at a lap submitted by one of our race department fans. Scott Mansell, driver 61's driving coach, gives him a few hints and tips.
Hi, I'm Scott Mansell, head coach from Driver 61, where we enable real-world and sim racers to fulfill their driving potential through our unique training program. Today we're going to take a look at a lap on board with Steve Worrell and explore 3 ways in which he can improve his racing. First, we're going to take a look at his throttle input, then we're going to take a look at his vision and how that can be improved, and then we're going to take a look at how he's steering the car and loading the car up into each corner. So here we are on the start-finish straight coming down to La Source. Heavy braking zone into the tight right-hand hairpin. And the first thing I want to look at here, as I stop the video, is Steve's throttle input. You can see at various points on this lap, Steve is actually blipping on and off the throttle, and this disrupts the car. It removes grip from the car, and actually it lowers the amount of grip the car's got, and therefore means that he can't travel through the corner quite as quickly as what's possible. So his exit, as I just mentioned, won't be as good coming down the hill to Eau Rouge. And so he'll be losing time all the way down here. He's got a good line coming through Eau Rouge and Radion, freeing the car up on the exit. Could have used a little bit more road on the way out of the corner. Going down the Kemmel Straight now, slightly uphill here, down to Lecumbe. The tight right, left, right. Nice and late on the brakes again, using the braking references on the left. Slight trail braking as we enter Lecumbe here. Good line. But again, you can see that he's a little bit on and off the accelerator pedal all the way through this section. And some of that comes from not having your vision in the right area, which is what I'm going to talk about in just a few seconds. Coming through the tight right-hander now of Brussels, down the hill. And here you can see that Steve actually misses the apex. Now, this is generally, and what we've seen from his driving, is that he's not using all of the road. So he's missed the apex here. He's not using all the road on the exit. And this typically comes down to not having your vision in the right areas. If you're not looking far enough ahead at the right times on the track, then you're going to miss these apexes. You're not going to have the confidence to get back on the accelerator, which is why we see him blipping on the gas pedal, and he's not going to be using all of the road on the exit of the corner. So you can see here, coming through the left with no name, he's missed the apex, and he's also not using all of the road on the exit. Coming down to Pouhon now, really quick left-hander, double apex. Again, he's pushed out a little bit wide in the mid-corner there. Again, that's typically down to vision, and he's not needed to use all the road on the exit. So he could actually tweak his racing line through there. But first of all, he needs to get his vision right. Again, a little bit blippy on the accelerator pedal. Coming down to campers again, need to keep the flow and the fluidity in the car here. Really important that we get a good exit coming down the back straight here so that we're carrying speed all through the next section. On the way down to Blanchemont. This is where you can be winning a lot of time. You can see the delta falling and falling. Now look at Steve's steering input here. Quite sharp as he turns in there. And I'm just going to stop the video there. If we are adding the steering so rapidly, we're actually transferring the weight of the car to the outside very quickly, and the more quickly that you move weight around the car, the less grip that you have. You can see there that although this isn't a very important corner because it is flat out, Steve has this general technique in a lot of the other corners where he's just grabbing at the steering wheel a little bit and actually lowering the amount of grip. He's bringing the limit down in his car. This again typically comes from vision because he's not being able to visualize the racing line through the corner and is having to make micro adjustments as he's traveling through each bend. So through Blanchimont here, again, is quite sharp there with the steering input, throwing that weight to the outside. Again, we're using braking references as we come down to the final chicane to complete the lap here at Spa. Using the curbing pretty well there. Watch the throttle pedal again, stamps on it pretty hard, again, which will lose a little bit of grip at the rear of the car, and is not using all of the exit road on the outside of the lap. So thank you very much to Steve there for supplying the lap. I hope you took something away from my analysis. If you do want to learn more about driving technique, check out driver61.com for our free tutorials and our sim training programs.
Well, let's take a look at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit, one of the world's great racetracks. Key for every driver is not the entry into Eau Rouge, but the exit up the hill ready on, because the long, fast Kemmel Straight, and it is very steep, follows after that. You can either pass or leave arrival if you get the Eau Rouge Radion section correct. And then you get to the braking area at Les Combes. It's an absolute classic overtaking opportunity, but even more importantly, a good line through Les Combes will set you up for the downhill section that follows to pile pressure on a car in front. And that all ends, Paul, as you get back to the pits.
Yep, so the bus stop chicane, theoretically quite a Mickey Mouse corner compared to some on Spa, but a beautiful opportunity to overtake your rivals. Very tricky corner, have to be careful. And Spa-Francorchamps, absolutely one of the most legendary circuits, arguably in the whole world. Beautiful track, folks. Thanks to Steve Worrell for submitting his lap for Scott from Driver 61 to review. If you want your lap shown on a future broadcast, it's open now. Record a lap, go to RaceDepartment.com, the media section, upload it, and we will pick one to be featured and critiqued by Scott in a future broadcast. Tonight, there's going to be an article up detailing how you do that in a little bit more information. So please do get recording, get lapping, and submit it in for the next round of the SRO Esport GT Am Championship.
Yeah, more fan involvement there, so do send your laps in. Okay, we are just moments away now from Paul and Martin talking you through round 2 of the SRO Esport GT Series Am Championship. And just before they take over, here is a short word from our sponsors.
This Race Department broadcast is brought to you by GT Omega. GT Omega, race your way. The BenQ EX3501R, ultra-wide sim racing curved monitor. ProSimu, professional motion simulators. And Curbstone, probably the best track and test day organizer in the world, as well as our other selected partners. The AM Series, led by Tim Jarchel. Top 10 cars in qualifying were Audis, and they will be released now on the run down to Eau Rouge. Tim Jarchel and Arnaud Lacombe, the front row starters. Lukas Schmidt, Mikhail Statsenko, they're going wheel to wheel, and that is very brave indeed. Tim Jarchel holds this line. Arnaud Lacombe trying not to use too much curb through Radion. Third place, Lukas Schmidt. And there's contact between the leaders. We go off. And they will be pinballing between the barriers all the way up the Kemmel Straight. And this will be a 38-car pile-up because only 2 got through, and even they may not have got through unscathed.
Oh my good lord, I have never seen an accident of that size and scale before. That was exactly what we spoke about in the pre-show. The lead car managed to find a puddle, the only puddle on the circuit, aquaplaned straight into the barriers, nothing he could do about it, and with 45 cars bunched up together, trying to find the same bit of tarmac, unsighted by spray, we had a Macau-esque pile-up onto Kemmel Straight. Disastrous start for the race. After all these restarts, we've had a huge accident. We don't have full course cautions here or safety cars, so obviously we don't need to repair barriers as we saw at Spa-24 last year. We don't need to crane cars out of the way. There is damage. Some people will be able to get going, some will have to hobble around to the pit lane, and some are out. And Martin, that's immediately absolutely opened the door for the Porsches and the Bentleys. Rake Strelo in 8th position now, so massive start for Rake there to get up to 8th place, the lead of the two Bentleys, with Largo Montero behind in 9th.
And the top Porsche as well, that's Samir Ibrahimi, and he is up into 7th place. The guys from row 2 and 4 of the grid have sort of just about survived. That's Mikhail Statsenko who leads, Roberto Scorpati second, Florian Haas now showing in 3rd, although originally it did look like it was Florian Haas in the bronze car who was 3rd. And in 4th place, it's Fabio Diana, the 86 Audi. Then Samir Ibrahimi in 5th position, and in 6th position is the number 56 Audi, and that is Corrado Ciriello, another name that we didn't utter once. But look at the damaged cars now. Wings hanging off, front end shattered. There's one of the Lamborghinis. Was that the Barwell car? Looks like it was. So I think that is Luca Burke there behind. 85, our second place starter, Arnaud Lacombe, and a lot of drivers. There's Rake Strelo in the pit lane.
Yeah, this is the danger when we've got such a big grid in these conditions, in such a... No, there's again another car straight onto... That is again where the puddle is, the aquaplaning.
That is Samir Ibrahimi. He had just moved up ahead of Ciriello, and he has found the water and gone off into the barriers. There's Florian Haas getting ahead of 587 Roberto Scorpati at Lecombe. We talked about that in the pre-show. Lecombe is a great overtaking opportunity, but it needs judgment and bravery in equal measure. And what's left of our field streams into the pit lane. No point in telling you who's in the pits, because it's almost everybody. You can see from the timing pylon, 11 cars, maybe 12, have continued past. So it's Mikhail Statsenko, the 144 Audi, who leads. Statsenko for Kazan Racing. He's our race leader, but there is the battle for second. Florian Haas and Roberto Scorpati. There's your race leader, a dark coloured car. And he is just praying that nothing goes wrong here and he can grab a hatful of points. Because this is the biggest open goal that he's been handed now, whether by luck or judgment, or somehow he managed to avoid, if not all, most of the carnage that was happening in front of him. His car looks like it's all in one piece. It's got the requisite number of wheels, wings and splitters and so on. So he could be doing all right.
Yeah, great opportunity there, Statsenko at the front of the field. And I'm just quickly looking down the championship order from round 1. Not a single driver that scored points at Silverstone escaped uninjured from that accident at the first lap. So every single one of our current point scorers are on pit road or exiting pit road at this moment in time, which throws massive curveball into the championship now. So basically, we're going to have 1 to 10 thrown out the window for this race, because I can't see anybody making up a points position unless something dramatic happens in the next 54 minutes. Great opportunity for the championship and a great opportunity for this man, Mikhail Statsenko, currently leading the race with Florian Haas.
Well, let's assume that what you say is right and nobody scores who has previously scored. That means we will have a tie for first, a tie for second. You following me? You'll have 20 drivers in the top 10, tied in pairs. Here we go, the run out of Eau Rouge and through Redion, up the Camel Straight, into the braking area at Les Combes, spearing up the inside. Does he get it parked on the apex? He does. Great move from Roberto Scorpati to go back past Florian Haase. And that's not the race leader in front of them. That's the Parker Racing Bentley, a lap down. So is that the best of our pit-stopped cars that has come back out? Is that 21st place? I think that might be. Is that the number 18 car of Attila Banks? Not sure. I think it might be, but here we go again. Look at that, 3 wide with the Audi side by side, piling on the speed down the hill into the corner with no name. Scorpati under real pressure in 587 from Florian Haase, and the leader is 5 seconds up the road. Mikhail Statsenko now, 53 minutes on the clock. He is going to be in traffic much earlier than would normally be the case on this super long 7-kilometre 4.3 mile circuit. Don't forget, normal Grand Prix circuit is 4.5 kilometres, 2.5 miles. So this is twice the length of normal Grand Prix circuit. And you should get a lot of laps in, 15 minutes at least, maybe more before you hit traffic. They're going to hit traffic on lap 3 or 4 because so many cars are damaged and are coming out of the pit lane.
And we're going to have such a varied amount of experience in these conditions by the drivers as well. This is the AM Championship, of course, community drivers who have qualified online. So some of these guys are experienced with 10 plus years experience. Some of these drivers have only been racing for a few months. It takes a very special skill set to race in the wet, especially in a competitive environment like this. As we go to a quick replay, Martin.
Well, let's take a look at the replay of the start. Sweeping down into Eau Rouge to the left, and then through, and again up through Radion, the left-hander. Arnaud Lacombe on the concrete there behind our race with Garchel. And it's Garchel, as exactly as you called it in the live, he just snapped sideways. There was no contact from anybody else. The car just broke away from him, and the lucky 3 or 4 got through in between the spinning wreckage and everybody else. The accident found them. They didn't drive into it. It came to them. At those speeds, coming out over the brow at Radion, you are totally blind. And if there are cars in the road, in this weather, you ain't stopping. Mikhail Statsenko, our race leader, Paul, after 3 laps of a very wet Spa-Francorchamps.
Yes, Statsenko doing a great job, and although it's not the same part of the circuit, that opening lap accident reminds me very much of the Formula 1 1998 Belgian Grand Prix. Very similar thing. David Coulthard catches Scorpati there touches the curb a little bit, pushes him wide, manages to get the car in a 4-wheel drift and keeps it on the track. So good driving for Scorpati there. But yet in 98, when Coulthard lost it on the aquaplane, words escaped me there, and the entire field piled into him. Very reminiscent. So real life being imitated by virtual on this occasion.
Well, the good news here is that if you do trigger off a big accident, they can't come to your garage and punch you like Michael Schumacher did to David Coulthard. So there is that. On board with Jonas Savalainen, the Finn, 16th position, gives an idea of what the conditions are like. And, you know, if you've ever ridden a motorcycle, if you've ever had motorcycle training, they say stay off the paint. If it's wet, do not go on the paint. Use the grey stuff, son. That's what it's there for. Paint, AstroTurf, curbs, all of that stuff. It might as well be sheet ice because there is no grip at all. Stay off it because that's what will pitch you off into the barriers. Savalainen playing a little bit fast and loose with some of the runoff areas. And he probably shouldn't be doing that. He's in 16th position in a battle. Everybody is now going to be strung out. And if you find a little battle to keep you entertained, so much the better for you, I think.
Another interesting thing to factor into this race, because we're in wet conditions, I'm almost certain every driver will be on wet tyres, is how those tyres are going to behave over the duration of this race. If it keeps raining, as we see one of the cars at the top on Radion going wide and managing to avoid the barriers, I think the Lamborghini there, but that's a very Code Brown moment for the Lambo driver. Should be able to recover it nicely, but that'll not help his tyres as we're topically speaking about the wet boots.
Well, that was the car right behind Jonas Savalainen, which was Ray Largo's Bentley. Let's take a look in the GT Omega replay. Oh, this is not going to be good viewing, is it? Oh, Lacombe twitches sideways, trying to avoid the spinning Tim Jarchel, and he too ends up in the barriers. Oh, I know it's virtual, but that's not fun.
Got to hope for Arnaud Lecomte that he's not got a powerful steering wheel as well, because that would have been sore on the wrist, to say the least. And Lecomte nearly got away with it there as well. He seemed to, in symmetry with the race leader, lose control over the puddle, but we thought he may have just managed to get away with it until 45 cars didn't brake and caused the accident.
Looking here at Florian Haase, also running out very wide. The grip levels are really catching them out. And there you saw the car behind him, Samir Ibrahimi, having a big tanks. It's not, in fact, it's still the Parker Bentley that's behind him. So that's not Ibrahimi. Ibrahimi is 5.5 seconds back behind this battle. Scorpati, the white Audi, just in front. We're looking back from Florian Haase. And so, where are we? It's not Raik Strelo. Everybody below 12th place is a lap behind the leaders. So if you're in the top 12 now, you've got a very good chance of making points. 48 minutes just under on the clock. So somebody ahead of you, if you're in 12th place, like Ogorodnikov, Igor, just be patient. Somebody's going to make a mistake. This over 3/4 of an hour of this to go, and we're seeing cars going off on every lap. This is one of those races where drivers get out after a stint and say, I crashed at least once on every lap. I say Malinovsky here in his Porsche. He's the second of our Porsches in 7th place, and he is 4.5 seconds behind Chiriello in the Audi in 6th, and behind him is another 3.8 seconds back to Matea in the number 29 Porsche, Karim Matea. So there are some big gaps down the field. Florian Haase has one of the closer battles on his hands. He's only just under 2 seconds. Yeah, nice confidence lift and a downshift there. He's making no mistakes as he comes through Eau Rouge and pops out over the top in Rédillon. And there's the standing water, and he's in the barriers. There's the standing water. You saw the spray from Scorpati's car as he went through safely. That's the standing water, the river across the track that caught out our race leaders at the beginning of the race just 5 laps ago. So Florian Haase in the barriers, he recovers, but right behind him now, looks like a couple of lapped cars. I know that's Samir Ibrahimi in the Porsche number 49. So this is for position. The Lamborghini between them is not for position, but Ibrahimi in that chrome green car is 4th. Florian Haase is 3rd.
Yep, Ibrahimi looks like he's got a clean car, so it doesn't look like...
A huge moment for the Lamborghini driver. Absolute heart in the mouth stuff there. Goodness me.
Yeah, fantastic car control by the number 64. That's Jonathan Boivin in the Lamborghini. Beautiful car control, but he needs to accept that he's got a faster car behind him and concede position. Will be frustrating for Jonathan. He's wanting to try and make some ground up on his rivals. But Ibrahim, as you say, is closing up on Haase. Haase greedy on the throttle over the puddle. The drivers all know is there now, so he's being caught out with aquaplaning, and Ibrahimi looks like his Porsche is...
And there goes the Lambo.
Heart in mouth moment there for the Lambo, but Ibrahim is clear now, which is the headline from this.
And for Ibrahimi as well, because you never know where the car is going. What do they always say? Aim for the accident, because the car won't be where it was when you took that path towards it. But, and the Bentley behind is starting to struggle as well. Now that, I think... Is that for position? No, it's not. The Bentley behind Ibrahimi is 8.5 seconds behind him. So it is Haase versus Ibrahimi, Audi and Porsche for the podium. The Bentley behind and the Lamborghini are both lapped. And again, let's just talk a little bit about the points. It doesn't matter if you're a lap behind, 2 laps behind, a day behind. if you're still in the top 10, you still get points. So there's, again, it's like never say never. That is the key in motor racing. Let's take a look again. I'm sure, a huge moment. That's Luca Burke in the Barwell car number 5, having a monster save on the way out of Eau Rouge. Up the Camel Straight. I'm not sure that Florian Haase was being too greedy on the throttle. Basically, as you come out of Radion, you're hard on the gas. It's 100% throttle, Paul, as you know, in the dry, in the wet. It's just where the water has moved to. I would assume there, either he drifted offline and hadn't quite realised how far offline he drifted, or he was on the same line that was perfectly safe last lap, but the water has moved across the track. Battle going on, though. This is for a podium spot. Samir Ibrahimi in the Porsche, and right in front of him, Florian Haase in the now damaged Audi. And whatever he's mislocated and bent on the front, it is not helping him with traction on that front axle here. It's not biting the way he wants it to. The Porsche's looking up the inside. He's going to go through, isn't he? Yes, he is. And that is a clinical, and I have to say, hugely ballsy pass as well in some very wet weather.
Yeah, Florian Haase knew what was coming there and let him go. And now it's time for the German to start considering what the challenge is from behind. He's got an 8.7 second lead over Largo Montero. So it's going to be a case of, will he try and keep with the Porsche? Can he keep with the Porsche due to the damage that has incurred earlier in the race? We've got 42 minutes left to go. The weather is changed. I don't think it's raining quite so heavily as it was at the start of the race, although it's still very much coat and hat material out there on circuit. Oh, who knows what the next 42 minutes. There's no point even trying to predict it. I'm going to stop myself halfway through my sentence because anything could happen.
Well, let's take a look again in replay as we pile down the hill into a very wet Eau Rouge. And whose car gives them the biggest moment? It's the Lamborghini, and somehow he avoids the tyres, but gets collected again. It is blind there as you come up. It is so steep coming out of Eau Rouge that your windscreen visor blocks any view of the top of the hill. So you can see nothing apart from literally a metre or two in front of you. Then you pop over the top at Radion, and suddenly there is the track full of spinning Lamborghini. No way to avoid it. Samir Ibrahimi and Florian Haase do exactly that. They pop over the top in Radion, but luckily for them, the track is now clear.
Can I begin to see a bit of a drain line around part of this lap as well, which will be another interesting change. It looks quite wet down here into Le Combe, but there is a mild line starting to appear, and this is going to be interesting for tyre wear, Martin. So a wet tyre on a soaking wet circuit, 60 minutes, should be absolutely fine. But if conditions change and things start to dry out, we may start to see some pit stops from these cars, which adds another very interesting strategic element into this race.
Well, if you're in the top 12 right now, you do not stop under any circumstances. You just do not, because you may as well just turn the computer off and go and have a cup of tea, because you're giving away any hope of tyres. You just have to hang on with whatever the weather brings and whatever is left of your tyres. I mean, we've seen it so many times. You think back to Monaco, Sebastian Vettel on tyres that in free practice or qualifying would never even have been allowed near a car. But if you've got track position, you've got everything. They've got to get by you. They can catch you. Don't forget, anybody below the top 10 pretty much has to make up a lap to get into the lead. So there is a lot of racing yet to go in these 40 minutes. On board with our Swiss Vincent Ehrbrich in our only Aston Martin. He's got an Audi in his sights as well, and that's 587, so that's not Savalainen. Savalainen's ahead of him. The 587 Audi is Roberto Scorpati. Scorpati, don't forget, was right up at the sharp end early on, but he clearly has had an incident. So Ehrbrich goes by him. There is the Swiss liveried Aston Martin. Jumping back up the order a little bit. 388. And this is Gerard Martinez-Amer, the Spaniard, in his Bentley Continental. 20 years of sim racing under his belt in those familiar Parker Racing livery colours. GT Academy finalist. That's how good a sim racer he is. You don't accidentally get into the top of the GT Academy. And into the top 10, Simone Mineo. Mineo was battling pretty ferociously at Silverstone, recognised the car, recognised the name from the Silverstone race, but it was down towards the tail, even outside the top 20. But here he is in the points and in traffic as well. So he needs to make sure he keeps his nose clean. There's the car right behind with the turquoise and black. That is Martinez, and that is the position. The others around them, not so much. But Mineo in the electric blue Porsche and the Bentley right behind him. That is a genuine battle for ninth place. So these are our final 2 point scorers. They can ill afford anything to go wrong here.
Yeah, that's an intense looking fight at the moment. As you say, they've got to be very cautious. They're in the points paying positions. The cars behind are significantly behind thanks to the earlier incidents we have. And in wet conditions, there are many different racing lines. You can see, Martin, how the cars are moving around under the drivers. It's a lot of concentration required as Martinez gets a good run coming down into the right-hander, showing his nose on the big Bentley, but a little bit too far back to make that stick. And these cars are separated by nothing.
Yeah, Paul, you saw how the Audi came steaming right by him up the Kemmel Straight, didn't you? That's 156. That is Mikael Kılıçdaroğlu, and he was going quite well at Silverstone as well in the battle in the teams. But clearly the Audi here, again, look, he's gone by Mineo, so he's done 2 cars in 4 corners. So that Audi, very quick indeed, but unfortunately, it's also a long way behind. The battle here, 4 nights, Simone Mineo, and right behind him is 388, the Bentley driven by Gerard Martinez-Amer. So the Audis are still going quickly in these very wet conditions. But at the moment, this is a real distraction now when you're trying to hold off a car behind you, and this Audi in front is quick at different parts of the track. It's being held up mid-corner by the Porsche in front. Now he manages to get by, and Mineo here has to try and follow this Audi if he can. Pick up the toe off the Audi because he's going to want to go the long way round the outside. Quite have enough room to get through. 29 just creeps over on him, carrying Matteo's Porsche there. And now he's going to go a long way round the outside, and Matteo should give him racing room. There are blue flags everywhere. The problem is, when you're getting the blue flags, you don't know which of the cars behind you is the one that the marshals are indicating is the quicker car. And Matteo didn't move offline, and that leaves Mineo with a lot of work to do. Martinez in the Bentley. He's now inches off his back bumper.
And of course, Matteo and Mineo are fighting for position, so Matteo in P8 is defending for all his worth from Mineo behind, and Mineo himself got Martinez keeping his mirrors company. So this is a 3-way battle for 8th position with a couple of very fast lap cars.
Oh, and off goes the Audi. That was the car that came by, 156, Mikael Kılıçdaroğlu. The Audi off into the barriers, or the Porsche rather, off into the barriers. So looking a little further up the order now at the 992 Porsche of Maciej Malinowski, the 20-year-old Pole. And this is now a 4-way train. This is Malinowski's Porsche, Matteo's Porsche. And let's take a look again. And this was the attempt to go by. This was Matteo trying to go by Malinowski for 7th place and almost losing a spot to Mineo in that bright blue car, Bentley right behind of Martinez. So that is now a 4-car train.
And we've just seen by the Porsche that's gone off trying to get back onto the lead lap just how critical it is for these drivers. They're fighting each other, but they're also fighting the circuit themselves as Malinowski goes way wide through Pouan, I believe it was there. So Malinowski skirting with danger, and the drivers have got to be careful to keep away from the curves, be careful not to get out onto the marbles, which shouldn't be too significant, I don't think, at this stage in the race. And also fight for position. watching your mirrors will send you backwards very, very quickly. And I think Karim Mattea looks to be under a little bit of pressure now, a little bit more pressure from Minio. Minio using all the track and more on the run up the hill to the bus stop chicane, as we see a Lamborghini, number 64, facing the wrong way. That's Boivin again in difficulty, the Lamborghini. Another nightmare weekend for the Lamborghini brand.
Well, they looked better in qualifying, didn't they? But they're not racing strongly. You know, Paul, these four guys have got to remember that they are in the points. And 30 people will leave without any points. Don't be one of those 30. If the opportunity offers itself, okay, great, take it. Don't make this the hill on which you die and on which your championship dies. There's still 33 minutes and 44 seconds of this race remaining. Minio there defending hard against Martinez Bentley as they came up to La Source. Malinowski just about enough away from Mattea as we look back. This is not a view I'd ever want to have going into Eau Rouge, not seeing where I'm going. I think that would be really sick-making. Well, he goes all four wheels off there, straight lines, ready on, but he gets away with that. That's probably just as safe in the dry as any other part of the track, just as safe in the wet rather. So this battle continues. Again, out front, Statsenko in his Audi, now 6.4 seconds ahead of Roberto Scorpati. So the race leader, Mikhail Statsenko, in this mean black Audi, he's being monstered by the Aston Martin. The Aston is a lap down, don't forget. That's Vincent Erbridge. He's down in 15th position. Let him go. Let him go. Doesn't matter. You're not fighting them. Just keep on your line and keep your wits about you. Statsenko has a great opportunity, Paul, in half an hour to move into the joint points lead. And that means that of the 20-point scorers, he will be the top two. So that is a great opportunity. Don't forget, when we leave Spa, we've only got 3 more race weekends. With Steve Strelo, whose brother Rake has just moved into the top 12. K-Pack Racing Bentley, motors on. This is a great track, usually for Bentley as well. They've often been very strong in the total 24 hours of Spa because it allows them to really extend their legs. I don't think they fared quite as well this weekend with the Audis showing great pace. Jose Largo Montero, though, he is the top of the crew-entered cars or crew-built cars. Strictly speaking, they're not built in crew. The original Bentleys are, but the racing cars are built in Cumbria by M Sport. And Jose Largo Montero, 3.3 seconds behind Florian Haase, so he's not closing in. Haase is creeping away from him. Second best of the Bentleys is Martinez in 10th position in that 4-car queue behind Malinowski. Minio's moved up, Martinez has moved up, Mattea has lost ground. He's gone from 8th down to 10th. So Mattea has made a mistake and has paid for it. Simone Minio, there you see him in the bright blue car. So where has Mattea gone? He's still shown as 10th at the line, but 10 seconds behind this battle now. So he's gone off somewhere, hasn't he? Karim Mattea, there he is. The number 29 Porsche. What was I saying just a couple of minutes ago? Make sure that you're not one of the 30 who goes home empty-handed. He very nearly gave that away.
Yeah, that's exactly what we spoke about, trying to keep the car on the circuit, secure the points in the championship, which is a key takeaway for all the drivers from this race weekend. But that now frees up Simone Minio that we're looking at to continue his pursuit of Malinowski in 7th. So Simone Minio got a little bit of a gap from Martinez behind, which had given him some breathing space. The Bentley dropping off slightly. And that fight, no doubt, will continue as we hit exactly the halfway point in this race.
Looking here at Peter Brown, just ahead of Jonas Savalainen, beg your pardon, and Patrick Brown. So Patrick Brown in 13th place, Jonas Savalainen in 14th, less than a second between them. There's the 25 Audi of Brown. Savalainen in the 77 Porsche. Again, these drivers using maybe more curb than you would in the real world. And this is one of the things that real world drivers have had to get used to. In sim racing, the physics, while very accurate, are slightly different. And you have to learn that you can do things that you would never contemplate in a real world race car. And that's why people have spent a lot of time on the sims, like the racing drivers do in the real world in their cars, tend to be a little bit better than the newcomers, or in some cases, a lot better. So this battle continues, 13th and 14th. And in 12th position, as I said, Reg Strelo in the other K-Pack Bentley. This is Igor Ogorodnikov. He was in 12th and he's come out of the pits, and again, he's gone off into the wall. So he was in the top 12. Hit the barriers, and his race, I'm afraid, ended earlier than it should have done in Silverstone. Somebody else's accident caught him out. So go back again to Savalainen. Jonas trying to close in, and he is doing so, closing in slowly but surely on Patrick Brown. Gap down from 9/10 at the start of the lap to 7/10. Got nothing to worry about from behind. The Aston of Vincent Erbridge is a long way back, 12 seconds behind. So unless he parks it somewhere firmly, the Aston not going to catch him in a hurry.
Martin, number 8, position 8, should I say, Minio, that we saw earlier in a great fight in the Porsche, has been given a 30-second stop-go penalty for contact with another car. So Minio, currently 8th. Disastrous for him. I can only assume that's maybe something to do with the Mattia time loss earlier, but Minio, currently 8th, will have to serve a very painful 30-second stop-go penalty, which may drop him outside the points-paying positions.
Well, it will at the moment, won't it? So that'll put him getting on for off the lead lap. But there are some big gaps behind, but you're absolutely right. Something happened to Mattia. Minio's got a penalty. I'm not sure you have to be Einstein to join those dots. And so that makes it really dangerous for Malinowski now, because Minio is right behind him and is looking to make a move. And without his engineer on the pit wall going, let him go, he's got a penalty, let him go, he's got a penalty, Malinowski, his attention at the moment taken up with A, staying on the grey stuff, and B, trying to hold off Minio. Has he noticed that Minio's got this penalty? He needs to notice soon. Malinowski needs to let Minio go and not risk getting tagged, because it didn't help Mattia, and it ain't going to help Malinowski if Martinez goes by in the Bentley, as he would.
Just a reminder for everybody watching at home, we've not seen the on-screen graphic yet for GT Omega for our fan prize, so if you haven't already, follow Race Department, comment in the chat to be entered into the draw. When the fan prize alert comes up on screen, the competition will close and one of you will be selected at random to win an awesome GT Omega Pro Simulator cockpit. So get commenting, get following RD on Twitter to give me a chance to win.
Yeah, that's definitely more important than going to the fridge or putting the kettle on at this stage of the race, isn't it? So Minio, we just saw going by Malinowski. Malinowski there chose a great place to let him go. Just breathed off the throttle as they started the long climb back up towards the pits and allowed Minio to go the long way around the outside before they got to Blanchimont. That negates any danger for Malinowski. And if Minio goes off, he's going off stage right, rather than coming back into Malinowski's racing line, who'd be looking at going inside him. So it's a great opportunity for Malinowski to get Minio out of his hair. Minio is effectively 30 seconds behind where he is on the road now. So great job done. Malinowski still, quote, in 7th place, still in the points. Minio is going to drop way out of this 7th position now. So Malinowski's got to look at trying to catch the car in front. What's the gap up to Cirello? Corrado Cirello in his Audi is in 6th position. Okay, 18, 19 seconds away. Maybe with the changeable weather, something might happen. Seems unlikely. Cirello is similarly 15 seconds behind this man, Jose Largo Montero. But Jose Largo Montero has now closed up to just under a second behind Florian Haase. On the timing screen, it shows 1.07. That's not a second. that's between 6 and 7 tenths visually. So Jose Largo Montero in the 14 Bentley is starting to close in on the continuing to close in on the 4th place Audi. So Montero is a little bit like Jarchel and Lacombe early in the race at Silverstone, in the top 10, not drawing a huge amount of attention to themselves, just gradually creeping up towards the top half dozen. Of course, they rolled their sleeves up and set about each other in the closing stages to keep us on the edge of our seats. But Jose Largo Montero, you think within a lap, will be by Florian Haase. He is going quicker.
Yeah, Montero doing a very good job as well on board the ProSimu onboard shot in the Sin Team Bentley. Largo Montero, should I say, don't forget, the pursuit of Haase. Haase made contact with the barriers early in the race when he aquaplaned just past Radion, I think it was. So the Audi ahead could well be carrying damage compared to what looks like a relatively battle scar-free Bentley Continental GT3 behind. So Montero will potentially be aware of that information. He will see Haase becoming bigger in his windscreen, and now Montero's got to balance the desire to chase and overtake with the necessity to keep it on the track and not make a mistake. But I've noticed, Martin, quite a bit that Haase's brave, shall we say, with the curbs of these conditions, and there's a danger that's going to bite him if he continues to use so much of the additional race circuit available to him.
And the other thing that you notice a lot is he's always running off very wide everywhere. The front end is not sticking the way it should do. That's the result of nosing it into the barriers at some considerable speed. Okay, we know that Audis are built out of solid granite, but nevertheless you can knock bits off all those dive planes, the splitter, you derange all that, and suddenly the car is understeer central. Largo Montero had a Eurovision race weekend at Silverstone, 0 points. He was in the bottom of the top 20 in qualifying. He's currently looking at 5th minimum if he does nothing other than select top gear and follow Florian Haase. So already he knows he is in the money. So he is not going to do anything silly. Florian Haase is clearly struggling. He can see that. We can see that. Look, Haase was ditch hooking there in Campus and still couldn't stay inside the white line on the exit as they went to Stavolo. So everywhere here, Jose Largo Montero knows his car is better. It's just picking your moment, and this might be it. Here comes the Bentley, picks up her skirts, charges up the hill, piling the pressure on Florian Haase. Can he make him outbrake himself at the bus stop? That's got to be the first opportunity for Jose Largo Montero.
Both drivers are young. They're both under 30 years old. Largo Montero's got 12 years sim racing experience, so he's seen a thing or two. He knows what it's like and what's necessary in these conditions. Haase may be a little bit phased from his racing earlier on, as we flick back actually to Martinez now in the other Bentley, really closing down the Porsche ahead.
Yeah, and that is because Minio has just driven away from Malinowski, and Malinowski, again, Martinez in a Bentley, and as the fuel load lightens, maybe as the tyres wear a little, the Porsche's grip advantage may not be quite as much as it was, and it's got to be a balance in there somewhere, hasn't it? Maybe the driver with a little bit more experience of how the traction control and the ABS work as you adjust them for the weather conditions. Still looks like pretty consistent heavy-ish rain, so I don't think the track is drying up in any way, shape or form, but of course the tyres are wearing and the fuel load is lightening. So our fan prize alert is up. No chance now to comment, but I'm sure all of you have on the Race Department Twitch, and that fabulous GT Omega Racing Pro Sim cockpit will be heading to one of you, and you'll be notified before the end of the race. On board with Gerard Martinez then in 9th place. And again, that 30-second penalty for Minio. Mattia has been dropped down to 10th position, so Mattia has got damage because he can't close on these guys at the moment. Minio, if he has a 30-second drive-through plus change, he is going to be, I think, 10th, 11th. And Lozanov could be the real fly in the ointment for him. Christian Lozanov, the Hungarian, in a Bentley. He's currently in 11th position, and he may be right where Minio's drive-through puts him back out. So there is Christian Lazarov, the Hungarian driver. Easy to spot that bright bile yellow, lime green, whatever you like to call it, Bentley. That's a colour that makes a car stand out, even in grim conditions like here at Spa-Francorchamps.
Yep, that's a bit like Ayrton Senna's helmet. When it comes up in your mirrors, you know it's Ayrton Senna. But Jose Largo Montero now closer than he's ever been to Hasser in front.
Yeah, and all over the back of him, coming down into the bus stop. And this wears Haase down. Every time they get to a braking area, the Bentley is trying to come alongside. So he's having to second guess all the time. For Jose Largo Montero, he doesn't have to second guess. He knows where he's going and if he is going. So it makes it easy for him. He's got no one to worry about behind him. The closest car is miles behind, not in his mirrors, not within sight in his periphery. So it's just about piling the pressure on Florian Haase and waiting for Haase to make a mistake. The flip side of that coin is when you're piling the pressure on, you've got to make sure you don't make a mistake. And for Jose Largo Montero, as you say, plenty of experience. He's been doing this since he was in his early teens. Then he has got to make sure that that jump from the back end of the top 20 into spitting distance of a podium finish remains solid for him. Here's Mikhail Statsenko, our race leader, heading inside the final third of the race now. 60 minutes at the start and less than 20 to go. But he is no longer on his own. He is no longer 6 seconds clear. He is just about a second clear of Roberto Scorpati. So it's Audi versus Audi. These two both qualified extremely well. They were both on row 3 of the grid, 5th and 6th. Statsenko was just 900ths of a second quicker than Scorpati in qualifying in the dry. What have they done to their cars? What have they done to the balance to try and keep them alive in these conditions? Statsenko, he's got to hold off an approaching car of a similar style of the same brand. And you can see how hard Scorpati is pushing. Crikey. This is fantastic stuff.
Yeah, great car control. And it's so difficult in these conditions in a racing sim. Of course, when you're in a real car, you feel the car from your backside. You can feel what the four wheels are doing underneath you. And in a racing sim, most people run a static cockpit. So the feeling is coming through the force feedback of the wheel in your hands. Controlling the car in fine detail in those conditions, very skillful driving there.
Yeah, when it goes light, I think whether it's the virtual world or the real world, it's still a real hang-on moment. So Malinowski under pressure from Largo Martinez. Malinowski in the white Porsche and Largo Martinez in the black and pale blue Bentley. And the Portuguese driver. This is an Iberian battle. No, it's not the Martinez behind him, the Spaniard, and it is Cole who is in front, trying to hang on. Matthew Malinowski, privateer with just a couple of years of sim racing experience, really doing a strong job here, hanging on to 8th position. Looks like the Bentley has got more to offer. He's able to hold a tighter line than the Porsche. We've seen that in a couple of instances. Porsche's early race grip doesn't quite seem to be with them.
The Bentley as well, Martin, it seems to me the body language of Martinez seems a lot, or the body language of Martinez's car seems a lot more relaxed, a lot more comfortable and confident than Malinowski ahead. It just looks like Martinez is he's biding his time and seeing what opportunities develop as we see Largo Montero now in the GT Mega replay.
Yeah, this is Jose Largo Montero in the Bentley chasing Florian Haase. Well, it wasn't a pass attempt there. He's not quite close enough as they come out of Stavolo and start the long climb up the hill, but wide over the curbs. And a huge loss of grunt from Florian Haase. The wheels spinning away all that horsepower helplessly. Through Blanchimont, the Bentley on the outside has to be very careful. And in the end, does not quite get the opportunity to put that to bed. but Florian Haase very nearly gave away fourth place, and now Largo Montero has got by. He's now up to fourth, and Florian Haase down to fifth. So somewhere that was completed, but we go back to the Malinowski and Martinez battle. Another Bentley on the move. Where were Bentley in qualifying? Where was the top Bentley? 15th, 17th, something like that. Now our top Bentley is in fourth, and our second best Bentley is in ninth place.
Yeah, fantastic performance from the Bentley boys, really pushing hard through this race. And going back to the Haase overtaking or a defending attempt, credit where credit due. Florian Haase has kept his cool. He's really got the bit between the teeth and showing a lot of grit and bravery and skill to hold off what is clearly a faster car behind up to this point. So well done to Florian Haase. I know Largo Montero has now cleared the Audi, and I expect him to move away quite quickly, but Florian Haase up to this point, only 13 3/4 of a minute left on the clock, should be proud of his performance up to this point, and still P5, a very strong position.
Okay, so here's the pass. He's behind the Audi, but the Bentley driver, Jose Largo Montero, has a good run this time all the way up the hill, sweeps around the outside, and there you go, job done. And again, that's the Audi losing traction, running wide on the curbs. And a change again. Malinowski has been passed. Martinez has got through in the Bentley. So that happened in much the same way, I imagine, that the Porsche drifting out wide, spinning up the wheels on the curbs as they start to climb the hill. Maybe out of Stavolo, maybe Coeur Paul Frere. It gave the Bentley driver a chance to take a run up the hill and use the horsepower. And it's not that the Bentley's got a power advantage, but if you're spinning away your power, then you're not climbing the hill efficiently, quite clearly. And now Malinowski, 9th place, Martinez, 8th. And so the pole now has to try and attack the Spaniard in front of him. And he is, isn't he, Paul Jeffrey? He's giving it everything he's got as they come out of Radio and up the long Kemmel Straight. He's in the tow.
He is, but Martinez again looks the more confident of the two drivers, so the Bentley seems that little bit more planted than the Porsche behind, and Martinez shows that advantage through Eau Rouge and Rarion as he pulls away down the Kemmel Straight. The Porsche sideways, giving absolutely everything as Malinowski to keep with this Bentley. And by comparison, Gerard Martinez looks like he's driving in dry conditions as we're looking back from the ProSimu sponsored onboard camera of the Bentley Continental. Martinez looks like he's in a different weather conditions to the Porsche behind, a lot smoother, a lot more positive on the car, not needing to do the micro corrections, which of course are slower and riskier for the Porsche behind. So I'm going to throw it to chance here and make a prediction, which historically I've got a 0% correct so far, but Martinez will start pulling away now in the final throws of this race.
And there is the pass. Malinowski in the red and white Porsche, and Martinez going the long way round the outside. And Malinowski again running out wide, exiting Blanchimont. Our race leader, Paul Jeffrey, has been in front all but one corner of this race. Mikhail Statsenko has a lead now of not even a car length over Roberto Scorpati. Our director is trying to catch up with all these battles in the top 10 because this is now for the lead. Scorpati has come back from 1.6 seconds back at the end of last lap to be within touching distance of the race leader.
Yeah, these two fighting tooth and nail. Remember, in round one, Steksenko finished 16th and Scorpati 22nd. So this is, obviously it was a Porsche benefit last time round, but this is uncharted territory this season for these two cars, and they'll be very keen knowing...
Oh! And that is Roberto Scorpati pushing as hard as he dares. Now, the good news for him is that Samir Ibrahimi was 28.5 seconds back, and that was not Samir Ibrahimi going by for second place. So that is your final public warning from your tyres, Roberto Scorpati. Second place is better than parking it in the barriers and no points. As you say, Statsenko scored nothing, Scorpati scored nothing, Ibrahimi scored nothing. In fact, nobody in our top 10 scored a point last time. And so it's vital that they hang on now, and Scorpati won't get another get-out-of-jail-free card. The gap's now already, before the end of the lap, out to 8.8 seconds to Statsenko. All of that hard work, in the end, has taken too much out of the tyres, and they just gave up there. But he's had fair warning. If he goes off now, no one to blame but himself.
And that just shows how very easy it is to do in these conditions. Obviously, Scorpati, given it his all, he closed up over a second in less than a lap to Statsenko ahead of him. He could taste the opportunity to make the overtake. As we're watching again now, I assume Scorpati just loses the car, as you would do in these conditions, doesn't have enough real estate to correct it, does well actually to avoid hitting anything, so no damage will be incurred to the car, although the tyres may well have warmed up above their operating temperature, but they'll soon cool down in these conditions. And Scorpati, I think, can count himself lucky that he lives to fight another day, especially considering the gap he holds to third position. Abrime, currently the lead of the Porsches, at the bottom of the podium positions.
Yeah, Samir Abrami is 20 seconds behind. There he is. So he is firmly ensconced at the moment in third place. But again, as we've just seen for Roberto Scorpati, you can lose 8 seconds in a heartbeat, as well as 10 years of your life, probably. And look how close Jose Largo Montero in the Bentley is. 8.6 seconds behind Ibrahimi. If Ibrahimi has a similar heart-in-the-mouth moment at the double left-handed downhill that we just saw from Roberto Scorpati, then suddenly Jose Largo Montero's Bentley will be actually possibly hitting him, but right with him. There is Largo Montero. The car in front of him is not for position. In fact, the car in front of him is, he was in 12th place. That's Ogorodnikov, and he has dropped way down the order. So Igor Ogorodnikov, who looked like he was shaping up for a good result at Silverstone before getting taken out in somebody else's accident. Igor now down to 21st place in the Lada Sport Rosneft e-racing team. Tough break for him again, although in all honesty, tough break for, I should think, about 37 of our 40 drivers on the opening lap, all getting caught up in that accident.
Martin, just a quick public announcement for all you listening. The winner of the GT Omega Fan Prize competition has been picked, and it's a clean break for Mr. Soap SR. So congratulations, Soap SR, for winning the GT Omega Pro Simulator Racing Cockpit. Thanks to our broadcast sponsors, GT Omega. Congratulations to you on that awesome prize. We'll be coming your way in the not-too-distant future.
Yeah, congratulations indeed. Now, you said Mr., but there's no...
Indeed.
No gender-specific name there. Soap SR could be... it could be your cat, frankly.
I was too excited with my clean break joke.
So, clean break for our race leader, Mikhail Statsenko, 8.7 seconds ahead of Roberto Scorpati, and less than 8.7 minutes on the clock. 6.5 minutes remaining, and Statsenko, well, it does look actually as though the rain is now pretty much stopped, but in 6 minutes, a couple of laps, maybe they'll get it. Yeah, they'll get a third out of this. Scorpati's not going to catch him unless he throws this away. So, well, again, there's a classic Spa shot. It was dry from inside the car, heading down the old endurance start, or the old Grand Prix start, and into Eau Rouge, and then raining up the hill. So Samir Abrami in third, Jose Largo Montero in fourth, 6 seconds now ahead of Florian Haase, and then Cesare Cirello ahead of the Porsche, with the penalty of Simone Minio. And here is Karim Mattea being passed by Victor Erbridge. So Mattea, who was tagged, we believe, out of the race, we didn't have a replay of it, by Simone Minio, which is why Minio got that penalty. He was in a battle, a four-way battle for 7th place with Martinez, Malinowski and Mattea. And Mattea has struggled to keep up the pace. Patrick Brown in 12th. Victor Erbridge has moved up into 13th. There is Brown. And Karim Mattea down to 14th place. Should have been in the points, is not in the points. Patrick Brown, 12th, will be 2 away from the points. And we will have to wait and see how fast. The key here is the pace of the Bentley, number 567 of Christian Lazanov. The Hungarian driver might take 10th place from Simone Minio at the end of the race. I can't do the maths, and I wouldn't want to start with 4 minutes and 45 seconds remaining, but it's basically between Minio in the Porsche and Lozanov in the Bentley for the final point, I think, when the stop-go or 30-second penalty has been applied.
Look at the damage as well at Lozanov's car, carrying a significant amount of, well, I would imagine quite performance-reducing damage from what I'm assuming is the opening lap shuffle that we had earlier in the race. So Lozanov is handicapped slightly from its ultimate pace in this race, still doing a sterling job just outside the top 10. And Drake Strelo actually has managed to sneak into the top 10 in the sister Bentley. So that car is 10.4 up the road. Not long left in the race, but we've still got the Minio question mark of how that penalty may have been or may be applied. Could be post-race now. I've not seen Minio dive down the massive pit lane here at Spa-Francorchamps. So that one's one that will be resolved in Formula One style after the checkered flag has been waved.
Well, add up the gaps. Minio was 12 seconds ahead of Martinez, who's 3, let's say, ahead of Malinovsky, another 12 ahead of Strelo. So that's 24 plus 3, that's 27 plus 10 for Lozanov. So that's 37 seconds. If it's a 30-second penalty, then Minio stays in the points. If it's a 30-second stop and go or a drive-through, then he does not. Here's our points leader, or there was our points leader, the man who won in Silverstone, Nazir Sahari in the Bentley. And unfortunately for him, the Bentley is nowhere near, well, nearish the points. He's in the top half of the field, but 17th doesn't get you anything, I'm afraid, not in this game. So number 7 Bentley now in 17th place. And again, another one of the victims of that massive first lap pile-up. Somebody's going to have to look at the footage, aren't they, and figure out exactly how many cars were involved. Basically, of the 40, I'm thinking 35, 34, something like that.
Yeah, it's got to go down as one of the larger sim racing accidents in the recent boom period of esports, which is a real shame because as a racing driver, and it's same in real as it is in the virtual world, you put a lot of effort and work into getting to this point where it all counts for 60 minutes of racing. And to see the large proportion of that effort and that preparation thrown away within, quite literally, the first 1 minute of track action is a soul-destroying experience as a driver. But where one person's trouble is another person's opportunity. And for us commentators and you, the viewers at home, it's massively opened the door to a very dramatic championship. As Martin's already said, the entire top 10 drivers will be equal with each other headed into the third round. So all bets are off on who's going to take away the advantage. And of course, the podium runners at this moment in time consist of Audi, which will be getting some nice weight penalties applied for the balance of performance, and a Bentley as well at the moment. So again, mixes it up for the Nürburgring, where we may even see that Aston Martin and McLaren shining a little bit more than we have so far this season.
Yeah, if they rub a little bit more Teflon coating on them, they may too. Mikhail Statsenko, our race leader, 1 minute and 14 on the clock. This then will be the last lap of Spa for him. Roberto Scorpati has really backed off the pace now, not 8, but 12.5 seconds back. Samir Ibrahimi, 17 seconds further behind him. Jose Largo Montero in 4th position. So yeah, as you said, well, what's going to happen with Audi? They came here with no ballast. Bentley are going to lose all their ballast because at the moment they're not on the podium. But Audi will get 25 kilos plus 17 kilos. So that's a lot, 42 kilos on the Audis. And the Porsche will go down from 27 where they are now, which was 17 and 10 for finishing 2nd and 3rd at Silverstone, to just 10 kilos, and nobody else will have any ballast as we go to the Nürburgring. So that's the way it is at the moment. And our top 10, well, it's going to be at the line where we find out what, or possibly after the flag, where we find out what happens with Simone Minio, currently shown in 7th, and whether he or Lozanov, who's currently shown as 11th, get the final point. Lozanov there right in traffic. You just saw his bright yellow car. But the race leader continues down the hill here towards the low point of the circuit. Do not go off now. Time has run out. Next time you get to the top of the hill, it will be the checkered flag. This is the last lap of the race for Mikhail Statsenko and everybody else. And Statsenko is looking towards the finish line and the checkered flag. The Russian driver heading towards the checker, leading this race as he has been since he exited Redion pretty much after a huge crash for our front runners in qualifying. It will be an Audi 1-2. Roberto Scorpati is a long way back but still takes second, and that is Mikhail Statsenko. He's going to avoid having to pass the Porsche in front of him. No need at all. Well, he is now very glad that he waited out the long delay to get this race running as he runs down the hill, the victor here in Spa-Francorchamps. And if you win a race as chaotic and wet as this at Spa, you know you've done a good job. Roberto Scorpati in second, and Samir Ibrahimi in the Porsche completes the podium. Jose Largo Montero fourth, the best Bentley. Fifth place for Florian Haase. That should be a done deal. And in sixth position will be another of the flanks of Audis, Corrado Ciriello. There is Samir Ibrahimi, our final podium finisher. So Jose Largo Montero at the line, 4.5 seconds back, ran out of puff in his chase of Ibrahimi. Florian Haase in fifth. Early on in the race, he dodged all those flying bullets and shrapnel and was in third place. Couldn't quite hang on to that pace, and an aquaplaning clatter into the wall didn't help him, but fifth position, no disgrace here. Corrado Ciriello will be joint sixth in the championship. And that much we know. He will be tied on points with Arnaud Lacombe, who scores a 0 here. Jonas Savalainen, we saw a lot of him in the race. He was in fifth place at Silverstone. Unfortunately, 14th place here. He does not add to his tally. Gerard Martinez now being shown in seventh. The penalty has been applied to Minio. And what happened to Lozanov? So he looked like initially he was going to be in the battle for 11th, but Lozanov must have had a problem on the final lap because he's now dropped behind Patrick Brown and Vincent Erbridge. So Simone Minio there is our final point scorer. He will be tied for 10th with Maxime Batufoulier, who finished in 10th at Silverstone. So our joint championship leaders, Nizar Sahari and Mikhail Statsenko, with a 10-point, or with a victory score each at the top of the pile, 25 points each, 18 points each for Michele Nerbi and Roberto Scorpati, 15 points each for Alex Torato and Samir Ibrahimi. And there are the rest of the finishing orders with penalties applied. Well, Paul, it took a while to get going, and then almost immediately it looked like it had hit the buffers, didn't it? As the leader aquaplaned off the road, followed by the second and third place men, into what turned into the most enormous motorway shunt since that police car chase in the Blues Brothers all those years ago.
Yeah, we suggested at the top of this broadcast that Spa-Francorchamps often creates an interesting race, often creates drama and action. And we hoped that things were going to be a little bit more intense than they were last time at Silverstone. And yes, Martin, they have come good. Quite considerably have our drivers on that one. We've had crashes, we've had great overtaking. A sprinkling of rain never hurts a motor race when it comes to the spectacle. Lots of great sideways action from the drivers. Every single person that crossed the finish line, from the race winner to the person that came home last, can be proud, rightfully proud of themselves for their performance today. These are not easy conditions in which to race, especially in a big pressure championship scenario that we've found ourselves in. And I, for one, despite the frustrations of starting a little bit later than planned, I thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I hope you have, Martin, and I hope everybody at home has as well. It's been different?
Well, I think we've definitely earned ourselves a cooling libation to lubricate the vocal cords, and I'm not quite sure exactly what he was planning to do this evening, but maybe Mikhail Statsenko, maybe Roberto Scorpati, maybe Sami Ibrahimi. In fact, I think all the top 10 who are now, as I've said, tied in the top 10 on the leaderboard, I think they can all give themselves a well-earned pat on the back. And as you say, yeah, just to survive all of this, to keep the car on the road and not to have a series of accidents all on your own, I think that's pretty impressive stuff. So good job by all our drivers, and thank you for all the paddling underneath the surface by those who were working behind the scenes to try and make sure that our electronic glitches did not deny us a race. And in the end, it's been well worthwhile, hasn't it, all that effort, because we had a cracking encounter here at Spa-Francorchamps.
Yeah, fabulous race, fabulous encounter. Shame once again to see various difficulties befalling the Lamborghini runners. So Lamborghini yet to get off the mark in terms of point scoring, but of course their best finishes will count towards their overall championship finish if they don't end up scoring points. 5 Lamborghini drivers in this race, of course, as you mentioned, Martin. The top 3 will win a chance to drive a Lamborghini Super Trofeo car as well. So that's an important race. It's just a shame we can't get them a bit further up the field to be a bit more front and centre.
Well, I think they really just suffered the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, because actually the Lamborghinis had qualified pretty decently, you know, and if the conditions had been dry, I don't know whether they'd have done better or worse, whether they'd struggled more or less, but as it was, they all got torpedoed below the waterline in that massive first lap crash, and none of them came out cleanly. So, and them's the breaks. And unfortunately, you know, our top 10, they, luck or judgment, they'll say judgment. You know, you've got to think that there's a very large slice of luck involved. It wasn't 2 or 3 cars that went off. It wasn't 5 or 6. It was 35 or 36. So that was you know, if you escape that, then you can consider yourself to have had a very lucky escape. And to make the most of it, well, you know, that's exactly what racing drivers want to do. Given an opportunity, they'll take it.
Yeah, brilliant. So, Martin, a pleasure and an honour, as always, sir. Thank you very much for joining me today for this race. Folks at home, give us a like and a follow on Twitter, Twitch even, Twitter as well if you like, but Twitch in particular, for future, never miss a future broadcast and things from Race Department, sim racing related. Thank you massively to our broadcast sponsors, to everybody, as Martin said, working behind the scenes to put this one on for you at Spa-Francorchamps, where on next weekend again at the Nürburgring. So look forward to seeing you on that one. I'm going to throw back to Vicky in the studio, assuming she's not gone to sleep after this long duration since we last spoke to her. But from the commentary booth, thank you all very much.
Well, what another fantastic race. Well done to everybody on the track, and thank you so much for tuning in. We are back again next Saturday for round 3 at the Nürburgring. Don't forget to follow us on Twitch, and we will see you again very soon.
This Race Department broadcast is brought to you by GT Omega. GT Omega, race your way. The BenQ EX3501R, ultra-wide sim racing curved monitor. ProSimu, professional motion simulators. And Curbstone, probably the best track and test day organizer in the world, as well as our other selected partners.